Hello, welcome to episode 7 of the Intern's Oddities from around the world. Today we will be discussing the origins of the Drunken Irish stereotype. So, the Drunken Irish stereotype has deep roots going back to a very long time ago. In fact, it even goes back as far as ancient Greek philosopher Plato, who described the Celts as drunken and combative. More recent renditions stem from British commentators who have dutifully satirized, made fun of, and critiqued Irish drinking habits since at least the 16th century. So these portrayals abounded during the 1800s amid efforts to justify colonial rule under the Act of Union. High levels of immigration since the Great Famine between 1845 to 1851, and the associated rise of the anti-Irish sentiment toward immigrant populations only served to reinforce the already entrenched belief that the Irish had a significant weakness for drink. But wait a minute, I thought that the stereotype was that the Irish love to drink. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be using pictures over here to, help out. So this first one, let me go ahead and say, is the flag of Ireland. So let's go ahead and switch to the next one. This is a stock photo of Irish whiskey in a bottle that I found. It's called Tullamore Dew Irish whiskey. We are not affiliated. It is just a random stock photo that I found, and I was like, "Oh, since we're talking about Irish and drinking, this should be a good photo to use, right?" So, this article I'm reading actually said that the Irish have a weakness for drink. Let's read on and see if I'm interpreting that incorrectly. Like weakness, like they get drunk easily and they pass out and they don't have a very high tolerance? Is that what they mean? Now, internationally, emerging expert testimony since the 1930s seemed to bolster this position. In the United States, psychiatrists began documenting disproportionate numbers of Irish alcohol related admissions to mental hospitals in areas traditionally popular with Irish settlers, like Boston and New York. Similar trends were also identified in Britain. So let's go to our next photo. So this here is a picture of an Irish countryside. So I don't know how rehab works, but I feel like if I was trying not to drink alcohol and, find something better to do with my time, traveling the Irish countryside looks like a very nice alternative. It looks like a very nice area. You got your little forest right here. It looks very quiet and peaceful. So let's continue. In 1962, Harvard sociologist Robert Bales published his findings on Irish attitudes to drink. He declaring that alcohol could act as a medicine for the Irish, an antidote to the symptoms of a hangover, you might say, a preventative of damp and cold in the changeable Irish weather, and a food substitute during periods of famine or religious fasts. It could also, Bales alleged, provide relief for tension of a certain inappropriate type. We'll just leave it at that. We try to keep our show pretty family friendly. So we'll just leave it at that and move on. But the firstborn son could look forward to marriage. Blah, blah, blah. We're skipping that little part right there. So, what was more, Bills continued, drinking was inextricably tied up with the expression of aggression in the Irish culture. Ah, so that might be where the stereotype of the aggressive, getting into bar fights, that might be where that came from. Most importantly, overt and active and persistent aggression against the English in particular. Together, these studies seem to suggest that the Irish race had a remarkable relationship with drink, or alcohol. This premise did not go unnoticed by politicians in Ireland who became increasingly conscious of claims circulating abroad about Irish drinking behavior. Importantly, this awareness coincided with a shift in Ireland's place on the international landscape at a time when Taoiseach Shane Lemos was seeking membership of the European Economic Community. In 1962, Lemass complained that even the BBC television service rarely, if ever, presents a play about Ireland without the characters moving around in clouds of alcoholic vapor. And I've seen it myself in pop culture many times. I've seen, a lot of times the Irish people are associated with drinking. In Grand Theft Auto 4, you meet this Irish man named Patchy, and he's a drunk. Like, not bad, like, not over the top, but he does drink, you know? And then, and, and they've made fun of it in Family Guy. There's an episode where Peter Griffin went to find his real dad, and his real dad was a Irish drunk. And he was like, that explains everything. And they even got into a bar fight. It was crazy. Now let's look at our next photograph. It's some sheep in Ireland, some Irish sheep. So I don't know if that might be something wrong with the photograph, but I'm kind of curious what these green spots are on the sheep right here. Do you see that? There's a green spot there and another one there. Is that a problem with the photo? Did someone try to spray paint these sheep? Like what's going on here? Like what's that about? So, let's continue. Responding to Lemas's vexation, Irish journalist Michael Viney reasoned that few Irishmen would disagree that the image of the drunken Paddy, whether fictionally presented on British television screens or factually endorsed in the magistrates' courts of West London, is humiliating to the Irish at home. And if Mr. Lemas is also concerned lest foreign industries are putting off coming to Ireland through fears of drunken labor and absenteeism, this too is understandable. Persistent claims about an alleged Irish susceptibility to alcoholism posed an additional threat to Ireland's international profile. The issue came under the spotlight in 1969 when leading Irish psychiatrist Dermot Walsh publicly announced that psychiatric admissions for alcoholism in Ireland were much higher than for Britain or the US. In a letter to the Journal of the Irish Medical Association the following year, Walsh stated that for the Irish, wherever they may be, alcoholism is a serious problem. In the years that followed, Irish experts endeavored to explain this trend. At Trinity College in Dublin, members of the pharmacology department launched an investigation to determine whether the taste for drink is a characteristic of the Irish. The study's leader, Professor C. W. M. Wilson, issued a call to arms for Ireland's research community. It seems that the time has come to combine the scientific, clinical, and sociological expertise in the country to find out if it is the Irish culture which causes the Irishman to drink, or if it is the Irishman's genes which causes the American to get drunk. So let's go to our next photo. This is a clover, which I thought, a lot of people can associate with Ireland. The four-leaf clover is supposed to be very lucky, I think, you know. So this is a three-leaf clover. And then this is an Irish pub called the Temple Bar. So we'll stay here for a minute and continue. Now, in response, most researchers favored cultural explanations, which were seen as less damaging to Ireland's national identity than discussions of genetical or racial defect. Many cited the influence of the Catholic Church. Some complained that the confirmation pledge resulted in a false and unnatural attitude towards alcohol. Now, if you're wondering what the confirmation pledge is, that is going to be um hold on one second. Okay, that is a Catholic pioneers group called for a return of the confirmation. Oh, yeah. We're not going to talk about that. That's an adult thing. We're not going to talk about that. You if you can, if you're interested in that, I would ask you to please look that up on your own time. I was looking up in live time as we were going and did not realize what that was. So I apologize for that. We will continue. And they're talking about some more inappropriate stuff. Such interpretation. Okay, so by the 1970s, researchers and other workers in Ireland had begun openly challenging the image of the drunken Irish. In 1972, the director of the Irish National Council on Alcoholism, Joseph Adams, said, "I've been trying to explode the myth of the drunken Paddy for some time." Commenting on developments in the alcoholism field over the previous 2 decades, Dermot Walsh also altered his tone. "I think it is clear that these activities, whether therapeutic, research, or preventative, indicate the concern with what is a characteristically Irish problem. The moving away of public attitudes from accepting a stereotype of Irish role fulfillment towards a standpoint of responsible public attitudes to the problems of alcoholism." In attempting to account for the distinct aspects of Irish culture that might create a fertile ground for alcoholism, sociology once again came to the forefront. During the 1970s, a UCD social scientist, Joyce Fitzpatrick, challenged the work of Bales and others that had been used to reinforce their stereotype for decades. Fitzpatrick's widely publicized investigations sent shockwaves through the research community as she established that the Irish, in Ireland, were drinking less than the average Englishman, a finding that gave rise to many a triumphant headline in the Irish national press. Tackling the drunken Irish myth head on, Fitzpatrick also argued that ethnicity was not a major factor in drinking behavior. Despite the proliferation of research studies since the 1970s that have largely confirmed Fitzpatrick's findings, images of the drunken Paddy persist. Today, however, these portrayals tend to spark controversy. For instance, a Canadian recruitment agency was compelled to apologize in 2014 for an advertisement depicting a man at a business meeting on the morning after St. Patrick's Day. Evidently hungover, the cartoon figure was portrayed wearing green, festive garb, including a t-shirt that read, "Kish me, I'm Irish." Following a complaint, the recruitment firm's marketing director apologized for potentially promoting stereotypes about Irish people or their culture. Now, let's go through the rest of our photos before we wrap up here. All right. So this was a promotional logo for a brand of Irish whiskey known as Lost Irish. And all of the photos that I use here have been found on Google through the use of tools. It has a tools section, and if you click on that, you can see a section that says usage rights. Now, and all of these photos are Creative Commons, so we are legally allowed to use these, and these are not our property, but they have been shared with us willingly, free of charge. And we appreciate each and every one of you who has allowed your photos to be used as Creative Commons. Thank you very much. And here I got a couple of photos of some people participating in what is known as a Louisiana Irish Italian parade, which looks pretty interesting. And then, here's something with looks like they're just celebrating their Irish and Italian culture, you know. That dude has some flowers over here. Nice little bouquet with a green teddy bear, you know. Looks like a fun little party. And then this is a picture of what a typical Irish person might eat for breakfast. Looks like they got some beans, eggs, sausage, tomato, hash brown, and some sort of meat, maybe bacon, but I'm not sure, honestly. And that is all the photos I have for today. So let's go back over here. All right. Now I would like to thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you have enjoyed our time learning about ancient Irish culture today and how they got the term of the stereotype of the drunken Irish. And I will see you next time on the Intern's Oddities from around the world. Thank you for hanging out. And remember, stay uncanny.